Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I have been given 20 minutes to explain you everything what goes on in the Netherlands, the gas markets, the future of gas. So that's a bit short in time. I'll do my best to give you an overview. And I have to go back about 50 years. The IEA has said that we entering in the golden era of gas, but the golden era of gas for the Netherlands started already 50 years ago. The Groningen gas field started production in 1962, and that was the time the Dutch government got involved in the E&P business. And I'm not sure, but probably EBN is one of the first NOCs, but that was never made known to the public. We've been doing quite well, and still are doing quite well. The Netherlands is one of the largest gas producers in the world. It's still producing between 80 and 19 billion cubic meters of gas per year. And it was ranking in 2010 on the 8th place in that sense. EBN participates in this gas production for 40%, and this is not the only, the Groningen gas field is not the only field that we're producing from. We have in total over 200 fields, but they're all much smaller. And I guess the smallest fields we're producing from is something in the range of 200 million cubic meters. This picture shows what the Netherlands looked like. It's a northwestern part of the continental Europe, and we have the company in people terms is very small. We have 70 people, but we're managing 183 joint ventures with quite a few oil companies. We have also quite a few majors active in the Netherlands: Shell, Exxon, Total, Chevron, but also some somewhat smaller companies like GDF Suez, although I think GDF Suez is these days also a very large company. Wintershall is active in the Netherlands, and then we have a number of smaller companies, mostly coming from Canada or the US, but some also from the UK. Turnover of the company is about 7.5 billion, and we make an annual profit of roughly 2 billion. Investment level is, our share of that is about 600 million, so annually the industry invests about 1.5 billion. And that has been going on for, I don't know how long, and probably the last 50 years, and this will continue at least for the next 5. And we hope we can continue that for the next 20 years. We're active in exploration, production, but also in gas storage. And we're also one of the shareholders in Gasterra, the gas trading company that sells most of the gas in the Netherlands. The Dutch state has been doing quite well with all this gas, because not only through EBN, because we pay the dividend to the state, but they also receive taxes and they receive other levies. And over the last 50 years, that has been in total more than 250 billion euros. Over the last, I'll say 15 years, that has been steadily increasing, and you could say, well, has production then increased in the Netherlands? No, it hasn't. This is just an effect of the gas price. Also, taxes have not changed. The Dutch government has a very stable tax climate. If they change the tax for the industry, it's only for the better. Because having produced gas now for 50 years, we slowly but surely running out of gas. We still have, we've produced about 3,000 BCM of gas in those last 50 years. But there's still about more than 1,000 BCM left. At least that's what we know is proven. So the Dutch government has initiated the Dutch gas hub, and it's trying to make better use of the infrastructure that was needed to, and is still needed, for the indigenous production. And I understood that Gasunie was going to give a presentation, because Gasunie is operator of this system for a large part, but they're not going to give a presentation after lunch because the gentleman is apparently sick. So I can maybe take 1 or 2 minutes to do a bit of explanation here. There's a very dense pipeline network in the Netherlands. It actually consists of 2 types of pipelines, one for the high cal gas and one for the low cal gas. The Groningen gas has a lower quality than most of the other gas. So it's the services that are provided is not only transport, but also there's an LNG terminal that was opened last year. There is a trading a gas hub where you can trade gas, the TTF, that's operated by APX Index. And there's also a gas storage in the Netherlands. There's one salt cavern that's operated by Gasunie, and there is a gas storage that's at the moment being built, and we're also 40% owner of that. There will be another auction during this year where the capacity will be sold, and it will come in operation in the winter of 2014-2015. So if you look at the production of the Netherlands, and this is going back to the early days when we had a quick build-up of the Groningen gas field, that's the dark gray part, to about 90 BCM. And the Dutch governments thought at that time that they had to compete with nuclear energy. So they want to blow down the Groningen gas field as quick as possible. Well, nuclear, we all know the story about that. So in the 70s, early 70s, decided, well, we need to use the Groningen gas field to make the development of other smaller gas fields possible. Well, if you have one gas field of a size of 3,000 BCM, then all the other fields are smaller than that. So that's the definition of a small gas field in the Netherlands, anything smaller than Groningen. What you can see that the production of these smaller fields, both onshore and offshore, ramped up till, well, the peak was reached somewhere in 2003. And since then, this production level has been kept more or less stable until today. But with these forecasts, because we do our forecast based on proven production, you see a sharp decline of those smaller fields. And Groningen is still, because it's still about 900, over 900 BCM left in that field, will continue to produce at significant levels. Our ambition is to, and that's why the dotted line is, to keep the small fields production at about 30 BCM for the next, well, you could say 50 years, but at least next 40 years. That's of course a challenge. That's not going to be easy. But this is what we would like the picture to look like, and then at least we have sufficient gas to, definitely for our own consumption, because Netherlands consumes about 45 BCM of gas. And we export the remainder, so about 40-45 BCM is exported to our neighboring countries. And that includes Germany, Belgium, France, Switzerland, and even Italy. And all these contracts, they were signed a long time ago, and there are those long-term contracts that were talked about yesterday. But the question, of course, here is, how can we achieve this? Because when we look at the exploration portfolio, there's still exploration potential left. And if you look at the conventional prospects, they're all in the smaller category. So we will have to drill a lot of wells. But so let me explain this picture a bit. On the left is the Groningen field, originally about 3,000 billion cubic meters of gas. Recovery factor will be we think roughly 98%, so gas in place is almost the same as reserves. What's left is about 950 BCM. In the middle, that's more the conventional reservoirs. What's still in the pipeline is about 350 BCM. We think we can produce technically about 1200 BCM, and that includes some of the tight reservoirs and some other opportunities we're working on to overcome liquid loading, which is maybe something that has been done frequently in the US, but it's something new in the Netherlands. And so there's quite a bit of potential there, fields and prospects that have not been looked at. But the technology these days, horizontal well with fracs, it should be possible to produce a lot more gas. And then on the right-hand side, we go to the more exotic type of gas. And this number, 330,000 BCM, I mentioned this on a conference about 3 years ago, and everybody started laughing because nobody believed that number. But this number, and we checked this again and again, but this is really what's in the subsurface. The thing is, you can't produce it. Technically speaking, we think we can produce 16,000, but that doesn't mean that everything is economic. So if the price go up, more of this gas can be produced. But where we stand today, nothing can be produced at the moment because we don't know yet if we can produce these shales. We do have shales. Well, this is another picture of where the shale basins are. There are quite a few, and definitely also in the Netherlands. And we've identified two. One is the Posidonian Albert shale in the lower Jurassic, and the lower, or the Gaverick shale in the lower Carboniferous. And we know from logs and gas shows that there definitely is gas. What we don't know is how we can, if we can produce this gas. Actually, in some places we don't even know if it's gas or oil. So what we like to do is to drill a few exploration and evaluation wells. But that's where we, in Europe, are getting into problems. Because although for the industry that's quite normal to drill an exploration well or an evaluation well, we've been doing this safely, but the public is not really in favor of that. And if you look at how we've done this, how we've looked at this, this is a picture of, I don't know if it's very clear, but this is the infrastructure that we have in a certain part in the Netherlands, and we've overlain that with the gas or the water source areas where you cannot drill, and there are some protected nature areas where you can't drill. And what it gives is a map of where we can actually would be able to develop or drill wells and develop the shale gas. That's the green part. So there's plenty of area in a densely populated country like the Netherlands to develop shale. I'm missing one picture, so that was I was looking for, but it has disappeared unfortunately, because that was with that I want to show you how densely populated it is, and we've actually already produced gas. We have a number of production sites in cities, and for some reason this was developed in the 90s. At that time it was possible, and now we're talking about shale, and everybody has watched the movie Gasland, and people got very upset about that. So the industry was, although we have 50 years experience, we have been doing things very safe in the Netherlands. We've never had any blowouts. Yes, of course, there's some spillage, some small incidents, but in general, we've been executing our activities in a very safe manner. But the public at large doesn't trust us anymore. We're a polluter, we're using chemicals, we're polluting the groundwater, the seismicity or earthquakes they're afraid of. The public is afraid of all the traffic that is required for fracking wells, etc., etc. So we have a task ahead of us to communicate with the public, the people that live in those areas, and ensure that and we have to gain our trust back from the people, because if we don't do that, we will never be able to produce any molecule out of the shale. And this problem is not only France, it's also the Netherlands, it's also Germany. At the moment there's a moratorium on drilling shale gas in the Netherlands. The government is doing an investigation whether it's safe, and they will be looking into the use of the chemicals, the fracking activities. For the industry, I think the way we've been working in the Netherlands, it will not be a surprise that the outcome will be yes, it can be done safely. Does it mean that the public will accept it? I don't think so. So there's again, we'll have to work very hard and probably maybe even go door to door and talk to all the concerned people and explain to them and listen to their concerns and try to overcome that. Thank you.
If I could ask you an immediate question, because I think later we're going to have a quite good discussion about unconventional gas and shale gas, but I have an unrelated Dutch question for you. How the Dutch story of how, I'm going to pronounce everything like an American, Groningen provided swing and allowed this small fields policy, allowed everybody else, you and your partners on the so-called small fields, to produce flat out, more or less. And Groningen accepted the swing. If you don't know much about it and you hear that, you think, well, it's the state taking this swing role. But in fact, it isn't the state. It was Groningen had Shell and Exxon in it for decades. What were the incentives that got two big IOCs to do something they don't typically tend to do, which is accept this sort of policy role of shutting down production and not being as profitable when the market called for it?
Well, what the government did to convince Shell and Exxon to cooperate, I'm not 100% sure, but there's always things that governments can do. It's indeed, but the small fields policy was set up in, I think, in 1973, and because at the time the swing capacity of Groningen was enormous. Groningen provided all the capacity that Europe required at that time. And still is, for a large part, Groningen provides that capacity. The reason, I guess, that Shell and Exxon still went along with that, because if you look at what happened in the early days, they could have flooded Europe with gas. And I guess there was also a policy, well, let's not flood Europe with gas, because then we won't get a lot of money for our gas. So in the end, and also because Shell and Exxon participated in a large part in these small fields, it has become less. But I think initially Shell and Exxon produced, I would guess, close to 90% of the gas in the Netherlands. So it was also to their benefit not having to provide a lot of swing or very little swing with their small fields. And they could rely on Groningen. So I think this was, in the end, a win-win situation for both the oil companies and the state.
Do you think it's a model that can be replicated in other countries? Or is it so unique to this situation where there's one giant field?
I know that the Bolivian government has visited the Netherlands to talk about the model, so I think they have also one large field. Algeria, I believe, is doing more or less the same. They have also one large field they're using as a swing producer. So yes, if you have one large field, you can repeat this. You couldn't do it, I guess, in Europe, because the gas market is too well developed. But in countries where there's hardly any infrastructure, because maybe if I can expand on it a little bit, at the time that the Groningen gas field was found, there was no gas market. There was nothing. Well, a little bit of gas. So actually, what they did is they developed the whole gas market. They put in the whole infrastructure. All the households were put on gas instead of heating oil. So the market was really developed. And that's what you will have to do if to find an outlet for your gas. Yesterday, there was Namibia, they're building a power plant. Yes, that's one way of doing it, but if you have a lot of gas, the field there is a bit smaller. But if you have a lot of gas, well, you have to find an outlet. LNG is, of course, now the big thing, and countries are exporting a lot of LNG. But if you want to use it for your own country, that's one thing to think about.
Great. Thank you very much.